All right, here we go. Cyhi the Prynce, welcome back.
Hey, I'm here. What's going on?
It's been 6 years since
Yes.
our last interview.
Yes.
Our last one was 2011.
11. It's been a minute.
First of all, congratulations for continuing to do your thing in this music industry.
Thank
because
you, man. Thank you.
being in the music industry isn't like being like a construction worker where if you lose one job, you just go down the street and apply to someone else, and there's someone else willing to give you a paycheck that you're accustomed to.
Exactly.
Like this is a constant hustle and a constant level of networking and working and finding where you fit into this music industry to continue to like support yourself. So the fact that you're continuing doing your thing, keep dropping music, keep being involved in some incredible projects, I salute that.
Man, thank you, Vlad. Thank you.
Yeah,
A lot of
man.
hard work.
No doubt, no doubt. So let's kind of get into the whole story again because it's been so long. You know.
Okay.
But you grew up in Georgia.
Uh-huh.
What was it like growing up in Georgia at that time?
Well, when I grew up in Georgia, it was I'm from the east side, Zone 6, the
Atlanta.
best side.
Zone 6 is Gucci territory,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, east side of Atlanta. That's me, Future, the list goes on. You know what I mean? Well, when I grew up, it's crazy. When I first moved there, it was predominantly white Americans. So it was like I seen white neighbors. I seen like my school. My sister went to school with like it was a mixed crowd of people. By the time I got there, about 5 years I was living there, it had turned all black. So it was more so families that was moving to my side of town with Stone Mountain, where if you had a mother and father, you would move there and they would get a house. It was like when you first moved out the ghetto in so many words. So we moved out the hood and moved to the east side. And I think that what made my upbringing pretty cool was all of us, I felt like we kind of made it out of the ghetto. These was all the kids that it was a new world for us too. So our creativity was able to flourish a little more than I feel like it would have if we would have stayed in our poverty-stricken areas. So, people would come to my side of town, you would see, that's where you get Trap House from, because it's a house. You couldn't believe that this is a 4-bedroom house. What are y'all doing trapping out of this?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I heard there's a whole meaning behind that name too. Trap house.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
had to do with like the back of it or something. Do you know the meaning behind
Well, what they saying is more so when people think of the trap, when you go in the house, it's one way in, one way out. It's almost like a shotgun house.
Okay.
But in Atlanta, the houses are so much bigger that the thing was you would get in trouble, what they call it, the red dogs. They would pull up on you if you was on the corner. But if you was in the house, you had to have a warrant. You get what I'm saying? So we would just rent a house. It might not be your house, but you would just rent a house down the street that's abandoned or ain't nobody in it. And you just set up in there until, so now the police can't just run up on you. They would have to like, damn, we got to get a warrant to go in there and stop these guys. So that was the trick of the trade.
Okay. And did you get involved in any of that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely early on, I think that's every predominantly black neighborhood. You have to dibble and dab. Yeah, so I grew up in the church in a fairly strict household. So my parents was very strict, but I was so much of a forward thinker, and I thought out of the box, and I thought I knew everything. So by the time I got kicked out of school, I got kicked out of school early. So I was 9th grade, I was out of there.
9th grade, that's your freshman year.
Yeah, well, the end of the freshman year,
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I went to school for like the first few months of 10th grade, and it was just over with. But yeah, so after that, my mom kicked me out the house, or my parents kicked me out. So I didn't have nowhere to stay. So the only place that was open was the trap.
So you were living in the trap house?
Yeah, I lived in the trap house. But the dope part about it was these guys had a lot of money, and it was actually my friend's house. So he was at school, but all the older guys was at his house during school. So the dope part about it, he had a studio. So we had a studio in the garage, and all the other stuff was going on in the other rooms, and I just stayed in the studio.
Okay, so let me get this straight.
Yeah.
One part of the house, so in the kitchen, they're cooking up crack. Living room, the fiends are coming in, buying crack. Are they actually smoking in there too?
But it's not, my level of trap wasn't just small crack. It was like,
Kilos.
yeah.
Okay. So were they actually letting people smoke in the house also?
No, it was just being cooked. Sometimes you you know, if you get a whole thing, you want to make sure it's right. You want to make sure it lock up right.
Okay,
So
well, no, but it's not like, you know how they have these dope houses.
yeah, nah, it's not like
dudes
that.
out there, you know, a group of people get high and
this is on a bigger scale. This is on a bigger scale. Yeah.
Okay.
These are grown dudes that was really getting real type of money.
Okay, so they're bringing in kilos
Of whatever.
of whatever, and you're there
As a kid, though, I'm only
kid.
like 14,
15. Are
Yeah.
they having you do some of the dirty work?
I mean, you know, eventually you have to, you know what I'm saying? Because you grow up, you right next to them. But I didn't get into nothing. Me being myself, I only did what I was willing to go to jail for. That's just how I rock. Like, it was a lot of options I could have took. You know, it was dope here, it was heroin here, it was weed here, it was this. I said, give me the weed.
Okay.
You can have all the other stuff. You know, that went to all my other friends.
But if the police got a warrant and raided the house and you're in there, you're going down for all that.
I know. That's why I try to encourage these dudes. I was part of something where they used to tell me, if you took the clothes to the cleaners, you get 10 years.
Huh?
That's how deep I was in the game.
Well, what does that even mean?
That means if you wash our cars, that's how deep our organization was. The Fed's gonna get a dude who washed the cars 10 years just for washing our cars.
Okay.
That's how thorough the dudes I was around. So they always used to tell me that if you take the clothes to the cleaners for us, you get 10 years. So in my mindset, it was already,
You're going to jail no matter what if I stay here.
yeah. It just by knowing these dudes is that thorough. So that's why I stayed in the studio and made sure I had a craft that could take me out of that lifestyle and not just sit there for the rest of my life.
Okay. What do you think was the most dangerous situation that you found yourself in during that phase?
Oh, man. I mean, shootouts was like normal, but it was a few little neighborhood problems that we probably had. I got robbed one time, and you know, it ended up being a shootout, and by the grace of God, I didn't get hit. But
So someone tried to rob you with a gun.
couple guys,
Couple guys, and you shot back.
me and my guy.
Okay, you weren't trying to give it up.
I mean, it wasn't about just giving up. I was already, once a dude draw a pistol on me, you trying to take my life. It ain't about the weed no more.
Okay.
It ain't about the work. It's about,
It was over a weed deal?
yeah, I mean, but it wasn't just little weed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but even when you talk about a lot of weed, a lot of times it's not as violent as cocaine.
Yeah, it's not, but you got to think about it. I started back when, I'll say during the Meech era, where if you got a bag of Kush to Atlanta, it was $6,500. So if I'm serving you 3 of them, that's 18.
Yeah, almost
That's 18
$20,000.
grand. So if you rob me for 18 grand. You ain't just rob me for, that's a lot of money. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Now it's diluted because now it's popular, but back then when I was moving around.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I partied with BMF. They flew me out.
Yeah, oh yeah, I heard your story.
Yeah, no, I got to see the height of the BMF era, you know, hanging out at Meech's house, hanging out with Blue, like, you know, that type of shit.
You know what's crazy, Vlad? I'm glad you had me do this interview because I wanted to teach the youth something. We couldn't even hang out when they came in the club. Like, we had this thing called the Pumpkinhead. So if we knew back then when the camera phone first came out, everybody used to think they were fans in the crowd, but it was really federal agents. So a lot of times we knew the party promoters, and we would get the best section in the club. So we popping bottles, we got all the chicks. BMF would come in. Now, you know, it's lit now. BMF comes to the party, it's lit. They got 50 cars back to back. Like, some of my partners was in BMF. Like, one of my best friends was like 3rd ranked. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and BMF would spend about $100,000
right
that night.
that's
Just
on
that
the low
night
end
in the club. It was like nothing you've ever seen before or after. Floyd Mayweather ain't got shit on what BMF was doing back then. Just keep that in perspective.
Exactly.
Go on.
So when they came in the club, we would have to leave the club in less than 3 minutes. Our bar tab, everything. Our OGs did not play that. Because if you get caught in one of them pictures and they come over here, you're going to have issues. So we had to leave the club. And I used to be so mad because I wasn't even supposed to be. I was like 17. You're supposed to be like 21 or something to get in here. But it was so many beautiful chicks. I'm like, no, I can't leave. But I seen my partner one time get his head was this big. because he didn't want to leave the club. So my OGs beat the shit out of him. And then you couldn't even he had knots everywhere, all over his jaws. It was just like
For hanging out with around BMF.
I mean, no, for not leaving the club.
Not leaving the club when
promptly.
BMF right.
Exactly.
Well, no, I mean, hanging out with them dudes with BMF and you know, me and Blue are still cool. You know, we've done a bunch of interviews over time, but
Blue was acting out, seen him in the pocket. He did an incredible job.
yeah, man,
Incredible job.
But like hanging out with him, it was just sort of like between the flashiness and the billboards. The world is BMF's billboards. There was like 3 of them around the country. I was looking at this going like,
next to the Turner Fields, like the Braves Stadium.
Yeah. So the Atlanta Braves, BMF, right there on equal footing.
Right.
I said, hey man, listen, what they're doing is cool, but I don't really want to be too close to all this. And for everyone who, you know, still admires what Big Meech has done, and you hear his name in music and songs, and BMF is still like a thing and it rings. I want everyone to watch this to keep in mind that Big Meech and Southwest T, his brother, is going to be in jail until like their 60s or 70s. Just to know, they got like 35, 40 years each.
And you know what's so crazy? Meech is not really like a bad person.
No, he was cool as shit.
Like he's like super duper cool, like
cool.
Real friendly. Like you'd be like, man, like how did you get into this? You would think he was a normal civilian. He was that cool. So it's crazy, man. You know, a lot of times, man, just growing up in the inner city, man, you get trapped in that world where it's hard to get out of it, especially if it's feeding families down, on and on down the line. You kind of just have to take that sacrifice. So big shout out to BMF. I mean, they turned our city up, so it's all G.
Yeah, kept a lot of strippers employed.
Yeah. And to this day, they showed a lot of guys how to get money, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, they showed them what not to do as well. So they're really the blueprint of, you know, the modern hustler.
Right. I mean, as someone who's a little bit older now, like myself, like no matter how much you ball out in your 20s, it's not worth spending your 30s, 40s, and 50s in prison.
Because them your best years.
Yeah, man. I'm at the height of my life right now. I'm doing better than I ever have before. I'm glad I made it this far. I could have messed up along the way. It's like, you know, your 30s and 40s, man, they're great.
Right.
They really are great if you make the proper decisions early on.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the dude in prison saying, man, at 21, I had 3 Rolls Royces and I had 7 girls and, you know, I spent 100, you know, 50,000 at the strip club, but now you're in a cage eating shitty food with a bunch of men.
Exactly.
You know?
I mean, that's what I tell kids in music. Like, it's all about, like, you can have that fast hit and be balling for 2-3 years and you gone. Or you could be KRS-One, still doing 5,000 venues. I seen KRS rock a show. I couldn't believe it. It was in Atlanta, too. I'm like, what? This shit sold out? And he killed it.
Yeah.
How old is KRS? Like almost 50 or something, huh?
He's more than 50.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I want to be. Like, you can have the hit records. I apologize. But I want to be Wu-Tang. I want to be
52 years old.
That's what I'm saying. I want to be like those guys and be able to still go out on the road, still drop an album like Jay, you know what I mean? So
that's what it's about.
Longevity till you're 70.